I've been away from the channel for, I guess, 3 weeks. No big reason, just a lot of little ones. And this is only the 5th video on this channel, so I'm just getting a good start anyway. I'd like to start out by thanking all of the people who have commented so graciously and lovingly on my previous videos, and I really do appreciate that. When I started contemplating what this video was going to be about, for some reason the definition of crisis crossed my mind, and I guess at the time I was thinking in terms of more of personal crisis, even though I wasn't in one, at least not a significant one. But for some reason it crossed my mind that in a class that I took years and years ago, it was presented that the definition of crisis, or at least the word crisis in Chinese, was made up of 2 different characters, one of which connoted danger and one of which connoted opportunity. And this seemed like a really good idea, and I thought about it a lot since then. And apparently it was made popular by a speech that President John F. Kennedy, made back when. And for a long time in management circles, it was a very popular notion that crisis was danger and opportunity combined. I really think that's a great idea, but since then it's been debunked on the internet. You can find it very easily on the internet that it's no longer believed that the second character of the 2 in Chinese means opportunity. It means more or less when there's danger, you need to be wary. And but for those of us who are spiritually minded and believe that we create our own reality, is not any danger that causes us to be wary an opportunity for creating the reality that we want? So I'm comfortable in saying that for me, crisis is definitely a recognition of some danger and an opportunity to fix it, to remove that danger. And of course, right after that thought, the school shooting in Uvalde occurred, and immediately I realized that it makes more sense to talk about national crises than personal crises in this video. And my next door neighbor, who is a Facebook friend, posted a post that showed how many school shootings had occurred since the one immediately before Columbine. And it was, I counted them, and if I counted correctly, I got 245 school shootings in those recent years. That's definitely a national crisis. We could actually broaden the crisis that we're talking about to talk about mass shootings rather than just school shootings. And we could broaden it even further if we like to talk about shootings. There's just incredible amount of shootings in this country. It's definitely a national crisis. There are other national crises, of course, one of which is very much in mind right now is women's rights, specifically women's reproductive rights, which is just a subset of the crisis that there's not equality among all kinds of people of all genders, races, and persuasions of various sorts. And that is obviously another national crisis. The question then comes up, can we, as a society, fix these crises? And I want to start out first by just very briefly talking about some of the mundane ideas that even people aren't necessarily on a spiritual path, but are, just in public media at large, talk about that have to do with mass change. One is the butterfly effect. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's commonly referred to in the media as if a butterfly flaps its wings just right, it can cause a hurricane in some other part of the world or some other part of the galaxy, I think I've heard it said. So people in general seem to acknowledge that there are ways that small things can make larger changes. Another one is the 100th monkey effect. That is, it was originally, the term was coined by the fact that it had been observed that after a certain critical number of monkeys found a new way of doing things, a new tool, for example, every monkey started using that same procedure, the same tool. And the 100th monkey effect is a way of saying that if there's a critical mass of thinking among people that something ought to be different, then it tends to come about. And so that gives me hope, even on a mundane level, that there's a possibility of changing things in this country and in the world having to do with the crises that we are in. And I am a little wary about using the term hope. Back when I wrote my book, which I've referred to previously and is referred to in the description of this video, I examined, as I was thinking about how I was migrating away from the Bible-oriented teachings that my family instilled in me to thinking for myself. I was looking at the fact that the New Testament talks about the most important things being faith, hope, and love. And I said at the time I wrote my book that I still believe in faith, I still believe in love, but sometimes I am a little wary of hope, because hope tends to imply that we just, it's out of our hands, but we hope that somebody will fix it. But the definition of hope is the feeling that what is wanted can be had, or that the events will turn out for the best. That's a worthy thought. And so even at a mundane level, I hope that we can change this. But now let's talk about more of a spiritual understanding and things that I firmly believe, that give me the belief that or the knowledge that I have a personal certainty that we are going to fix these crises. And in the process of presenting those thoughts, I put forth 3 specific sources that have been very influential in my life, bringing me to where I believe with certainty the things that I'm about to talk about. The first one is Abraham Hicks. My wife and I have followed Abraham for many, many years. Listened to countless hours of the channelings that come from a very high source, channeled through a woman named Esther Hicks. And we've actually been to 2 or 3 live conferences where we heard the channeling live. And the Abraham teachings center around the law of attraction, which is we attract to ourselves that which we're focusing on, that which is of a similar vibration to us. So if we raise our vibration to a sufficient level, we can attract anything we want to if we get in our vibration in concert with the thing that we're trying to attract. The second one is the book Power versus Force by a man named David R. Hawkins, MD and PhD. Specifically in that book, he talks about levels of consciousness, which I'll get to in a couple minutes. And the third is a channeled entity called Kryon, which I've mentioned, I think, in the previous video, Kryon, Kryon. Kryon claims to be an angelic being, never having been a human, and in very close to the identifying with the creative source itself. So I've watched countless hours of channelings of Kryon on YouTube, and have learned to believe that what I'm seeing is a very high vibration in truth, because I've come to trust the source. I watched a video of Kryon just a couple of days ago that was on that subject. Kryon talked about the the way channeling works and the way that his channeler, his original and primary channeler, a man named Lee Carroll, has over the years come to be able to merge his own consciousness with that of Kryon's consciousness and confidently channel what the source, that high source, is giving him as information. And I've watched countless hours of Kryon, so I have come, because of that element of trust, to be able to take what I hear in those channelings as truth. There are a lot of other sources out there. One of the viewers of my previous video, a woman named Rita, recommended to me in a comment that I take a look at another channeling that she thought was worth looking at, and I did. I looked at it, and I'm not familiar enough with it to name it here and put it forth as something that I'm recommending. But and anybody can look in the comments of the previous video on this channel and see what it was all about. There are all sorts of channelings out there all over the internet and YouTube. A couple of them that I might mention that my wife Linda and I have been very much involved with over the years are an entity called Bartholomew, and one of the books that was channeled from Bartholomew was called I Come as a Brother. I also was very much involved in reading about the channelings from an entity called Seth. A woman, I believe, by the name of Jane Roberts channeled Seth back in the 70s. I guess it was a long time ago that I read that. But the point is, there are a lot of channeled entities that come from a very high source. And if you're drawn to any of those, because you find that those higher sources can give you encouragement and guidance in your own spiritual path, I urge you to look them up. The things that I have come to take as truth and believe that inform my decision that I want to talk about why I know that we can solve these national crises for the better are, I think I have 5 of them here that I'm going to mention. And the first one is that I firmly believe, and I know, that the creative force is in all of us, and I'm comfortable calling that creative force God. I'm not talking about a white male being with a beard up in the sky at all. I'm talking about the creative force that I believe and know is within all of us. Cash Peters put out about a year ago an audio meditation that is very useful in convincing the listener that it's worth just being aware that everything is working out exactly as it should in the overall picture. And Cash quotes Eric Butterworth as saying, God is not in you like a raisin is in a roll, but like the ocean is in a wave. The wave is nothing more nor less than the ocean formed into the shape of a wave. And you are nothing more nor less than God expressing as you. I believe that we all have a piece of the Creator in our souls, and that is a very important reason that we can put our energy forth in the process of changing things in our society to eliminate these crises that are killing us in large numbers. I believe also that we create our own reality. The entity Abraham that I just referred to a few minutes ago in the law of attraction is all about creating our own reality, and the levels of consciousness that are presented in the book power versus force that I also just mentioned, are relevant to creating our own reality, because Abraham talks frequently about raising our vibration by reaching for the better feeling thought, as Abraham puts it. If we're down in the dumps, reach for the better feeling thought. And the diagram of the levels of consciousness that are in that book, Power versus Force, are totally relevant to what Abraham talks about. For example, if you're feeling apathetic or fearful or hopeless, or like nothing is going to ever work out, in other words, you're feeling hopeless, anger is actually a higher level vibration than feeling hopeless. Anger, it can be a stepping stone toward reaching then for a higher level of vibration, and anger can propel us into making the decision to do something about it and reach for a higher feeling thought and work ourselves up the ladder toward a level of vibration that is appropriate to our creating our own reality. I believe in the power of prayer. And I'm not talking, again, about getting down on our knees and begging the bearded white male figure up in the sky to give us more money or help our football team win the game. I'm talking about putting out into the universe a vibration of what we want rather than what we don't want, so that we help turn our energy toward creating what we want rather than dwelling again on what we don't want, and creating more of that. And the thing about prayer, it's talked about not just in the Bible and in church, but by a lot of the psychics that are on YouTube today, and the spiritual teachers. Prayer is something that many of us on a spiritual path totally believe in. And one of the things that makes prayer more powerful, in my understanding, is that where two or more are gathered together, and that's a New Testament quote, where two or more are gathered together, I think that it says, there am I in the midst of them, quoting Jesus, and at the time it was said. But it means our energies are amplified if we work together. My wife Linda and I do our best to take advantage of that, because we are two, and we're on the same page about most everything spiritually, and we believe that if it's important to send our energy, healing energy, or energy requesting or praying for change, the two of us together can put out that energy better than each of us singly, because of that concept. Two or more together are more powerful. The next thing, and maybe the most important to the overall point I'm trying to make, that we really can make a difference in solving these crises, is that we really are in a new energy. It's talked about a lot in the psychics and spiritual teachers that are on YouTube right now. Sometimes it's talked about going from the third dimension or the fourth dimension, and the fourth dimension is time in a lot of people's understanding, to the fifth dimension. I think I mentioned in the last video that Kryon says in some of the channelings I heard that there are so many dimensions. It's a multi-dimensional universe. There's so many dimensions, it's not even worth trying to figure out what the next one is or count them. But we are in the process of evolving as a race and evolving as a planet to a new level of multidimensionality in terms of our DNA, multidimensionality in terms of our our consciousness. Kryon talks about a part of our being that's partly, and by the way, Kryon says our soul is really multidimensional. It's not, we really can't understand how big it is while we're in the body. But there's a part of us, part of our soul that's multidimensional, that's partly within us and in our body and partly in our soul, that he calls the innate. The dictionary calls it innate, a adjective, but it's used in Kryon channelings as a noun. That part of us that is called innate, I-N-N-A-T-E, is the part of us that responds to affirmations and muscle testing to determine whether something is true or not for us. And that part is involved in our total evolution in a multidimensional sense. As I indicated before, Kryon is saying that we're evolving our DNA, and it's getting more multidimensional as we go on. We're evolving the planet, and to me, this new energy is just a critical part of understanding that we can change anything, because we're already in a situation that enables that better than ever before. I think everybody's heard the quote that's attributed to Albert Einstein, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But Kryon has actually said that in this new energy, some of the things, at least on a spiritual level, we're talking about here, that you've tried and didn't work, try it again. We're in a new energy. Things are different now. And the predictions that Kryon makes are very important to me. It's about the fact that those of us who are old souls and particularly senior citizens, like I am, came into this life, this present life, with an old energy that was still predicting the ultimate destruction of humanity and the whole life on the planet, basically. The Bible, Nostradamus, a lot of other sacred texts basically predicted that we would destroy ourselves. And Kryon says that if that had happened, we'd just destroyed ourselves again. I mean, it's happened before with other civilizations, prehistory, but we didn't. We managed as a human race to raise our consciousness to the point where we did not destroy ourselves, and we're past the point, as I understand these predictions, that that's going to happen. Instead, we have a new energy that people being born from this point on will be born into and understand better than we did when we first came into this life, that things are different. There's not going to be war. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is going to happen. That there isn't going to be war. There is going to be equality. There is going to be love and compassion among all people. We're eventually going to understand that we can not necessarily agree with the other person, but we will respect and love and feel compassion to the other people around us, or in general. I haven't been trying to convince you of anything particularly. I've just been trying to convince you that I am convinced, not trying to get you on my path. You're on your own path. But I really hope that what I presented here in this video is something that at least will stimulate thought in you and maybe make a difference in how you're looking at things. And if so, and if I have helped in that way, I'm truly grateful. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.